Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we look to write and publish a best-selling novel in just 52 weeks. My name's Mark DeVoe.
And I'm Mark Stay, and boy, do we have a goodie for you today.
Oh, yes. But before we reveal our very special guest today, we'd like to thank the sponsors of this show, Scrivener, the official writing app of the Bestseller Experiment. And if you've never tried Scrivener, you are missing out. So get over to literatureandlatte.com and do try their 30-day free trial. It's absolutely marvellous. So, on this week's show, we have the one, the only, Bryan Cranston. Walter White, Breaking Bad, Emmy Award winner. Mark, give us the full overview.
Well, he's Oscar nominated for playing Dalton Trumbo. He's BAFTA nominated. He's won Golden Globes and Tonys and Emmys. Of course, I first came across him watching Malcolm in the Middle, where he played the dad Hal. I love Seinfeld. He crops up as the dentist Whatley in Seinfeld, which is a brilliant role. And of course, he's a career-defining part as Walter White in Breaking Bad. But very few people know that he's also an accomplished writer. So he's in town publicising his memoir, A Life in Parts, an absolutely cracking read about part biography, part acting memoir, where he takes you through his life and all the different roles that he plays in his life, as first as son and then student and then father and husband and this incredible actor that we all know and love.
And if you're a Breaking Bad fan, we have something massively iconic from Bryan, which we're going to be giving away. So stay tuned for that competition after the interview. Let's listen to none other than Mr. Bryan Cranston himself.
Bryan, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment podcast.
Mark, how are you?
I'm very good. And how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Good to be here.
Now, we want to talk to Bryan the writer today, not Bryan the actor.
I'll go get him.
Okay, if you could, that'd be cool. Well, not many people know. Well, they'll know it if they've read your book. You've written a screenplay, and of course, you've written this book. This isn't just some ghost-written celebrity memoir. This is a passion project for you. Is that right?
Yeah, these are stories that I've been telling for a long time. A lot of them, from certainly the ones from my childhood, and then as I go along, I realize what makes a good story is conflict, any kind of type of occasion that you find yourself in confusion or doubt or anything that's seemingly negative or goes a bad way is eventually going to potentially make a good story. So I try to use that as a silver lining, that if there's a problem in your life, fear not, it could make a good story for you later on.
Were there any particular challenges or surprises when you were writing this book?
I can't really. I guess the biggest surprise was putting myself emotionally into that position again. Whenever I was writing a story that was particularly harrowing or fearful, I felt those feelings again. Because in order to truly translate what you're feeling emotionally to the written word, I think you need to submerge yourself in it as opposed to looking objectively at it and saying, oh, he was afraid. I wanted to feel it again and then to be able to convey that feeling.
So Bryan, before our interview, I just popped onto Amazon and I looked up your book, A Life in Parts, and it has a big word next to it that you may or may not know. It had the big word bestseller. How does it feel to now be not just Emmy Award winner and Academy nominated Best Actor this year, but best-selling author? Is that a dream of yours?
It wasn't a dream. Just like when I've won awards in the past, I don't act to win awards, but they're always nice when someone acknowledges you. And so I didn't write the book to win an award. I didn't write it to make money, although I am being paid for it, but my agents would have to tell you how much I'm being paid for it. I don't really know. And as far as being a bestseller, yeah, I think it could translate to mean that the book is resonating, that people are finding it and recommending it, because you can't get on a New York Times bestseller list unless you've sold a lot of books, and that happens when people recommend it. In fact, I ask a lot of people in the book publishing business, what is the best way to sell a book? And they said, always, it's recommendations. When a friend says, you got to read this book. So, very pleased.
Now, as an actor, you'll be used to working in an ensemble with the rest of your cast and crew. Writing is a very solitary experience. How were you able to cope with that?
I loved it. I loved it. You see, if I was a writer full time, you're agonizing over being alone because that's what you do. But my main profession is to be in the public eye. Is I'm on stage or I'm on a film set, and there's a lot of people around, and you go and promote movies, and it's a lot of hubbub and a lot of social interaction. And quite frankly, one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was to be able to still engage in creative endeavor and yet be alone. Take myself out of the public eye and be at a cabin or be at, a beach house and just let your mind soar and your imagination and be filled with inspiration to write, stories. And that's what happened. So it was great for me. The other thing was, it wasn't very intimidating because I wasn't writing from page 1 to page 275. It wasn't writing a novel. I was writing short stories from my life. So I already knew the genesis of the story, and I just needed to fill it out and put it down, document it on paper.
But of course, you have written a screenplay, and that's a very different experience in that you're accountable to director and producers, financiers, and the actors. How was the experience? And that was a screenplay that you wrote from scratch. So how was the experience of that? And would you do it again anytime?
To write a book or a screenplay? Oh, I know. I enjoy writing. I enjoy telling stories. So whether you're acting or directing or writing, it's all related. It's all storytelling. And it's the joy. It's my professional joy. And I love doing it. So I want to experience all aspects of the storytelling process. I've written a few screenplays, and it's very difficult to get them to a point where they're being optioned and actually being made. As I'm signing at the bookstore today, I'm signing books, and I almost guarantee you, and some woman came up and said, had a screenplay under her arm and said, "Can I leave you my screenplay?" And you can't.
Mark, you'll have to put that one away you've got then, eh?
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, put the screenplay away, Mark. Yeah. Is that what this is?
So, Bryan, with the experience of writing, have you ever been inspired? Because you mentioned in the book, which I absolutely love, by the way, I just have to say, I read it in 2 sittings, which I've got to say for me is pretty impressive because it usually takes me a long time to read anything. I was drawn in by some incredible stories. It made me laugh out loud. The chicken story was amazing. I really recommend people to read it just for that. But you also mentioned, a lot of very personal details about your life, and you talked about how your dad was a novelist and he was always striving for this dream. Through that, have you ever had a desire to write a novel now, having gone through the process of writing your life story?
I am intrigued by the notion of writing a novel, and at some point I'd like to take a crack at it to see. And again, like this book, I don't know if I'm really cut out for that. For instance, I did the narration, an Audible book, Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, about a reluctant soldier in Vietnam. And it was a book that I wanted to read. And but I never got around to it until I was offered the job of narrating the book. And then I was able to read it. And I was a little saddened by that experience because it told me that, I don't permit myself the pleasure of simply reading a book. But if it's work-related, yes, you now have permission to go ahead and read it. And I was really disappointed that, my life has come to that I'm so governed by the work and trying to take advantage of the opportunities that I've been afforded and grateful for. And so I did that, and it was not easy for me to do that. I also did the narration for my own book, but because I can't imagine some other actor saying my words. It was like, well, that seems odd. So I did the narration for my own book. But again, I had difficulty because you say a line of dialogue or a sentence from your book. I go, no, I heard I don't like the way I said that word. I need to go back. So it took me a long time to be able to get through it, much longer than a seasoned pro of doing narration would do. And out of that, I learned that I don't think I would do that again. I don't think I would do a narration of a book again, because it was not an easy, convenient, simple thing for me to do. I struggled a bit on it. And so I think there are others who could do it. So in that sense, to write a novel, it would be something I would like to try and see if it's if it works out.
Well, you should subscribe to our podcast, Bryan, because that's what we're challenging people to do. We're trying to write a novel within a year, and we're trying to inspire other people to do it. We're getting people like yourself on who've written, and so do sign up and join.
So the two of you, are writing together.
Yeah.
Now, how often do you get together to?
Well, we have story meetings once a week over Skype, and then we'll be writing every day. We've been doing this for about 6 weeks now.
6 weeks.
We have an out
car crash of an idea.
Yeah. The thing is, I've written before. I've written a screenplay and I've written a novel. Mark has never got beyond the 20,000 word mark.
Right.
So he's like, anything's possible. And I'm like, this is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
It's very hard. Yeah.
I'm completely naive. Actually, talking, Bryan, about your book as well, we've actually got a short clip from your audiobook that we'd like to play now, which is fascinating because it leads us into the question of the importance of character. So we're just going to play that clip now.
Early in the third season, we were doing a scene. My wife, Skylar, had kicked me out of the house, and I was missing my kids, yearning to be with my family again. So I made the decision to move myself back home. When we rehearsed, Skylar entered the house, and instinctively, I went to the baby. The director and writer of that episode said, no, we can't have you go to the baby. I was to have direct contact with the baby in subsequent episodes, and they didn't want to cannibalize the coming storyline. That may be, I said, but it's not what my character would do. No matter my sins and transgressions, in my heart I loved my children. I had been separated from my baby daughter. I was dying to see her. How could I just pretend she wasn't there? It wouldn't be true or honest. We talked it over and figured out a workable compromise. Just as I'm going to the baby, Skylar intercepts me. The desire of my character is still there. Skylar's desire to keep the baby away from me is upheld. A good solution. And a good example of how the process can work. Not everyone agrees all the time, but if everyone tries to stay true to their character and what's best for the story, while maintaining patience and respect, a path will emerge. Some actors come into work and wait to be told what to do. I think of my co-star in Barefoot in the Park who needed to be told that she should express affection toward the man with whom she is madly in love. I suppose those actors can do well, but I'm not that kind of actor. I have a finite time on Earth. I am not interested in coasting through it. I want to be invested. An invested actor asks questions that may punch holes in the story or highlight contradictions in a character that writers may not have considered. Asking those questions might mean we have to rethink a beat in the script or redo the blocking. It might mean more work. And that might upset people momentarily. But in the end, I'd rather do more work and get it right and give the finished product a richness and resonance that will last.
So, Bryan, that was such a fascinating clip. And in it, you talked about it's not what my character would do. And this is a theme that I picked up in the book, actually. A lot of times you had these kind of clashes with the writers because you really felt strongly about being authentic and staying true to your character. In novels as well, that's obviously a huge thing. What drives you to stay authentic to the character?
Well, I think that's the goal of any creative person, is to be authentic to yourself and your sensibilities, whether you're an actor or a dancer, singer, writer. I think that's the quest, is to stay honest. And I wouldn't say that we had several clashes in the 6 years that we did the show. There were probably 3 or 4 times that we had disagreements. If you are invested in the storytelling process and you're with other people who are as well, it's inevitable that you will at some point lock horns, because everyone can't follow the same sensibility. You're going to disagree. And it can be done because you can disagree without becoming disagreeable. So artistic frustration is not only expected, it's anticipated and welcome, really. Because sometimes when you get into an artistic argument, you spot a problem, and you then have to be hyper-focused on it to carve out what's at the root of that problem. And often the answer will come to the surface, and without the argument, you could have glossed over it. If someone said, well, it doesn't bother me that much, we'll just leave it in. But if you argue a point and do it, respectfully, you can come to find a better way to tell that beat, or a more honest way to reveal something. It's actually a tremendous benefit to the artistic process.
I hope you're listening, Mark, because this is going to be us in a few weeks.
You guys are arguing. Remember that? Yeah.
We'll do it as respectfully as possible.
Yeah.
Now,
I respectfully am calling you a silly ass for thinking that. Respectfully. Yeah.
You talk about part of your role as an actor is to take what's on the page and create a character. For us as writers, character is everything before plot. If you don't have a compelling character, you really don't have anything. What do you look for in a compelling character? And of course, you played possibly the most compelling character in television of all time, written by Vince Gilligan, who's a genius. So it's setting the bar pretty high. But what do you look for in a character on the page?
I look for, did this character have resonance with me? Did I feel for this? And it doesn't mean that